we are totally dependent upon white people at deeper levels than we even understand. Like you say, people are not willing to give up their car to be free, but they keep the same system that they complain about. You're not willing to give up your car. My man Sam Carter always say, success is measured by sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, America. It is Friday. Breakdown Friday going down straight from the South. I'm Joseph Ward. He's Patrick Irving. He's Professor Carl Tone Jones, and we here to give you a breakdown of some good information. So if this is your first time coming to the channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. On the Shoulders of Giants, very briefly, we give you the stories of sung and unsung heroes. We read books from our scholars, and we break down the information from our scholars, leaders, and master teachers to make sure that we understand all of the information that we have and be able to use the information to uplift, enhance, and empower our communities, our people, and ourselves. So that's what we do. And on Breakdown Fridays, we break down this information that's really going down. So got to have my brothers with me. Happy to have y'all here with me for another Friday. What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing?
Hey, bro.
Not much, man.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said last week, this week we are breaking down. This is going to be the first of 3 parts that we're going to spend breaking down Professor Carl Tone Jones's landmark, critically acclaimed documentary, The Independence Day Project. It's one of the best documentaries you've ever seen, or you have never ever seen, but that's why we covering it. That's why we're gonna break it down so you can see it. You need this in your life. So we are breaking that down. But before we get into the breakdown, I want Professor Carl Tone Jones to kind of, whet y'all palate, tell y'all what the documentary is about. So go ahead, PC. It's on you, my brother.
Well, first of all, I'm flattered. I'm honored. I'm humbled that we're talking about the Independence Day Project. As you brothers know, you both were part of the brain trust behind the documentary. Never want to actually, take full credit for the documentary. It was a job that encompassed a lot of us putting our heads together to solve some of the problems that we perceived in our community that were going unaddressed. So the Independence Day Project was strictly about creating solutions, identifying what's wrong, and finding solutions. A lot of our documentaries that we watch, they're chock full of great information, and I'm honored to to be a part of that particular fraternity to produce a documentary. But this particular documentary is strictly about creating an autonomous community for Black people, run by Black people, protected by Black people for Black people. So, that's pretty much my elevator pitch for the Independence Project. And let's get to it.
Link in the description. Link in the description on for it. So how we're gonna do this is it's like a minute or so clip, a minute 57 seconds. So we're gonna run the clip and then we're gonna take it back to the beginning and break it down as we go through. So sit back and let's do this.
Question is, what would the Black community look like if it was free to self-actualize, free from racism, white supremacy?
It looks like mine. It's like harmony. It looks like quality. It looks like peace. It looks like everything that we are striving for in this world.
I mean, I think the first thing that we have to establish when we're talking about independence is discussing what is independence. What is independence for everyone? Then specifically, what is independence for us? Independence is when you have your own sovereignty.
I mean, I think the key thing for me is wrapping our minds around what we mean by independence. And I think that there's a difference between freedom and independence, although the two are in the same family, so to speak.
Living in a community where you're free.
For us, by us wouldn't just be a slogan or a catchphrase. It would be the actual way that we lived. It would be normal.
We would have gotten rid of the rugged individualism that plagues a lot of us and keeps us kind of, acting as like animals, sometimes kind of with a dog eat dog mentality.
Where you're free to move independently, where you're free to move without obstruction, where you're free to move without being oppressed or in an oppressed situation. I think we would understand more so how creative we could be, how much more protective we would be in our environment, how much more responsive we would be to one another, how proactively we could think if we weren't under the thumb of white supremacy and the oppressive state and systems that it causes and creates amongst us.
All right. So the question is, what is black independence, and what is a black independent community? Right. I believe that that's not just a cut and dry answer. That's not something you could just say, well, the black independence is this. I think if you try to just define it without putting thought into it, we're going to keep getting the same results that we're getting, just a lot of filibustering and talking and debating and arguing and intellectual masturbating, because we haven't really put real thought into what black independence is. Because one of the reasons why I chose this clip is I like the fact that questions were being asked to define what independence is. What's the difference between independence? What's the difference between freedom? What's the difference between independence, freedom, and liberation? How do these things pertain to us in Black America in 2023? Is living in a independent Black community, is that something that's even still attainable for Black Americans today? And so I think that's a good question that we could put on the floor and kind of deal with. We could bring up our definitions and all that stuff there. You can see my internet acting like Metro PCS, but it's all good. We still here. But I just put that out and started with you, Pat, so we can rock it with you. But Black, and when you think Black independence, what's the first thing come to your mind?
You sure you don't want to start with PC? I mean, I can give an answer, but it's his documentary.
I want to start with you because you talked first.
I did talk first.
You did talk with your suit on.
I did talk first. I had pajama pants on under that. Anyways. I think to me, when I think about Black independence, I think a community that is self-sustaining. But then for me, it goes deeper than that, because I think, we could all give 2 or 3 sentences and then be done with it. But how do we go deeper than that? Like what was mentioned in the documentary, because the documentary did go pretty deep with regards to independent Black community. A self-sustaining community that has a business infrastructure and an educational infrastructure that communicate with each other and that intertwine with each other to produce the things that the community needs from inside of the community. So, it's not just a community that owns its own businesses and owns its own buildings and things of that nature. It's a community that owns its own businesses, it owns its own educational systems, it owns its own homes and buildings, but it also owns the methods of procurement for those things that are used to build those other things. It also owns and produces its own intellectual capital that is used to progress and develop those things and new ideas. It owns the resources and it manages its economy very, very well, or to an extent where if need be, it could be cut off and still sustain itself. And all of those are still, it's a little bit deeper, but it's still a high level type conversation to go digging into that would mean, like, not only defining these terms, but articulating how these things would come about, the processes that need to be put in place to bring these things about, and the ideas that would need to be in the minds of the people that exist in those spaces to protect them. Because at some point you are going to reach out and touch or communicate or deal with people from other communities. But how do you do that and still maintain your own independence, while also giving the other community something that's beneficial to them, that allows you to create a sustainable relationship. So it gets to be real interesting. But I think
Right.
about all those things, and in the interest of keeping it short
Right.
ish, I'm gonna stop.
But one of the main characteristics, though, you were going to say is to be self-sustaining, to be an independent community.
Absolutely, self-sustaining is a requirement.
Gotcha. All right. UPC, what's your definition of an independent community, or independent, or Black independence, period?
It goes a lot along the lines of what Patrick was talking about in regards to just understanding that the nation building aspect of it. Nations, they have borders, they have boundaries. Sometimes the boundaries aren't physical boundaries, but they're ethical boundaries. And the self-sustaining part of it, being a group of people that are self-sustained, self-contained. We when we look at different places around the world, we see nations, and nations are able to protect their borders. Nations are able to insulate themselves. And that, I think, is what independence looks like for us. It looks like of us functioning through our own volition, through our own momentum, but being able to establish ourselves in terms of our independence from other entities. Not to say other entities that never have influence, that's just the global climate of the
Right.
world. But to be able to point to something, culturally speaking, nation building speaking, however you say it, and say that this specifically belongs to this particular community without any sort of inference from other people, other groups of people. So when I look
Right.
at independence from that perspective, I look at it from a simplicity point of view, and say I can say that basically you create the boundaries from which your people operate and function within, and they can't be corrupted by outside influences. You know what I'm saying? And you control your infrastructure.
Right. So when I think about it, because I think we all agree that self-sustainability is one of the key components of Black independence. If you're going to consider yourself independent in any way, and I don't care what race, color, whatever, self-sustainability. And so I know a lot of times I see in the comments, sometimes people, they say that they believe that us being able to be self-sustaining is impossible, being that we are in America. I don't believe it's impossible, because it has self-sustaining Black communities have happened before in America. We talk about them all the time. Maroon communities, Palenques, Quilombos, all these things. They were self-sustaining Black communities. Over time, no, they were bombarded by the Europeans, but you had some that were able to sustain themselves for like 30, 40, 50 years, independent of anything else. And I think when we talk about Black independence, we need to take a realistic view and a realistic look at what is independence, what it takes to be independent, and what it takes to remain independent.
Mm-hmm.
I think structure and infrastructure, and then along the lines of the 9 areas of human activity, but structure and infrastructure, especially in the modern days, because let's just be real. If Black people want to be independent in America, we also want to sustain our lifestyles.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of the problem, though.
Exactly. Exactly. Because in order to sustain the lifestyle, you're going to have to be able to continue the infrastructure and to continue the structure. And we don't have the means to do that. Now, in order to really take a step toward independence, we're going to have to be willing to give up the lifestyles, give up the comfort.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think we do have it, though. I mean, in terms of, if you want to just talk about means of that are available to us, I think And that goes back again to being comfortable on the plantation. The plantation provides a lot of comforts. It's not the type of comforts that freedom provides, but it provides comfort. And they've also done a real good job. I'm talking about, the government. I'm talking about the engineers of white supremacy in America and throughout the world. They've done a real good job of beating the hell out of us in the past. And they remind us of that every year. Every year when they talk about the ceremonial Black leaders and when they want to remind us about Black Wall Street and things of that nature, they do a real good propaganda job of reminding us that they tore that shit down. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to Black nationalists that said that if we build something somewhere in the country, somewhere within this country, that they will do a job on us like they did in Tulsa. So in the back of our minds, we're like, if we build it, can we protect it? And I think that part plays a huge role in regards to what we're willing to sacrifice for.
And but why become the elephant who was tied to the pole and learned that it couldn't break the string from the pole, and as the elephant becomes a full-grown bull elephant, the elephant still believes it can't break the little string from the little pole, and the elephant could just walk right out. Why condition ourselves to that? Why even do that to ourselves? All right, we know what happened in the past. We understand what happened in the past, but by them,
we don't.
If you're gonna talk like that, stop complaining. But if that's how you're gonna talk, that's how you're gonna walk, that's how you're gonna think. Shut your mouth. Don't say nothing else about white supremacy, because you already quit.
But we don't understand what's happened in the past, and even those of us that do understand what happened in the past, amongst those of us that do, fewer of us still understand how that past would connect to this present. We don't understand the societal forces that were at play back then and how they might have shifted nowadays, or the rise of technology, or any number of everything is for the most part different nowadays than it was back then, outside of the way white people feel about Black people. So I think that those gaps in understanding show themselves when people make statements like, if we build it, they're going to destroy it. Because it assumes that we're the same as we were back then, and we haven't learned any lessons. And it also assumes that they're the same as they were back then, and they haven't learned any lessons. And it assumes that the world as a whole is the same as it was back then. And so I get it. Like, I do get it. And obviously, if we're going to build something, defending it has to be protected. Yeah, that's a foregone conclusion. Absolutely. But when people say things like we can't be self-sustaining nowadays, like, to me, that comes across as somebody that's not willing to give up anything. That goes back to the question we were asking years ago, where we were saying, would you be willing to give up your car for a free Black community? And people were saying, well, why should I have to?
Right.
Why should I?
Why should I?
You know what I'm saying? Like, those were the responses from people who were, and so I think that's what if you tell Black people, if you tell people in America, Black people being a derivative of that, if you tell them that there's a place where your children can be totally free, and you can sleep with your doors unlocked, and you don't have to worry about crime or anything like that. You just have to give up the internet and your vehicle. A good chunk of them wouldn't go.
Right. But that goes back to what we've been talking about for a while, and things that I've been reading in Dr. Naeem Akbar's book, and I'm now reading in Dr. Francis Cress Welson's book. We're displaying the extent of the conditioning. Hey, I have a chance at freedom, because it's like it was a movie I was watching, or a series I was watching on Netflix, and it was about these Africans who was enslaved in Colombia. And they were able to escape the plantation after a big fire, and they were living in the Colombo. And two of the children went to the white town, and they wasn't supposed to get spotted, but they messed around and got spotted. And so the white people sent a black scout to go find them and follow them and see where they're going. The mindset, right? The black scout followed them to their Colombo. At that point, he had a choice. These white folk have no idea where I am. Like, no idea where I am. I could go into this Colombo and never come back. And the white people never find me or none of these children. Nope. If he saw it and he went back and told the white people, and then the white people came and ramshacked everything. But that's that mindset of that dependence. We are totally dependent upon white people at deeper levels than we even understand. Like you say, people are not willing to give up their car to be free, but they keep the same system that they complain about. You're not willing to give up your car. My man Sam Carter always say, success is measured by sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we always talk about this. As Black people in America, we never had the opportunity to be autonomous fully. And
Right.
therefore, we never had the opportunity to truly nation build. And we never had the opportunity, or we missed out on some opportunities, I should say, to be full functioning adults in in anything, activity in terms of planning, operation, maturity. So when we talk about what people aren't willing to give up, that just speaks to somebody who's immature. And we have a community full of immature people who aren't willing to give up their toys, aren't willing to give up access to their leisure, aren't willing to give up access to their fun for liberties and freedoms. And they also don't want the responsibility that comes with being free.
Mm-hmm.
The responsibility with having to source your own food, having to create your own power grids, having to, create ministries that run specific parts of your particular government as you govern over your people, who don't want the responsibility. We don't want the responsibility of cleaning up our streets from crime. That shit happens on our block. You know what I'm saying? It's always they need to do something. Somebody needs to do something. We don't even want to take care of the trash in front of our houses.
I was finna say that,
yeah. So the frustration is there. And, we'll get into it a little later on, but there were some things that came up after we completed the documentary back in 2018.
Yeah. Because every couple months, I either go out by myself or I take my boys with me, and we clean streets. We don't post it on the internet. You know what I'm saying? We don't. Well, I don't post nothing.
You ain't supposed to.
But you know what I'm saying?
If you out there working, you're not thinking about your cameras.
But I'm just saying. I'm saying that just to say we do it because it's something that I feel like need to be done. Now my boys probably don't share the same feeling. They do it because I tell them we're going to do it. But the fact remains, in a lot of cases, it's happened on several occasions, as I'm picking up trash in a community that I don't live in, that's a predominantly Black community, there will inevitably be somebody that'll walk by, ask me what I'm doing, and keep walking. There will inevitably be somebody who presumably lives in that community that'll see me doing what I'm doing, put their trash in my bag, and keep walking. And there have even almost every single time been somebody that'll see me doing what I'm doing, interact with me, drop trash on the ground, and keep walking. Now, some of them try to be cute about it. They try to talk to me a little bit and drop their trash where they think I can't see it. But so when we're talking about the cleaning up our and things of that nature, like I love the way PC said it, because when you said, you make the choice to be free, but we also have to make the choice to be responsible and be accountable. And those are the choices that people don't really want to make in these modern times. You don't want to make that choice. If you say we need to build our own food supply, You know, people are like, well, how we gonna make ramen noodles? Well, no, we can grow stuff in the dirt. Yeah, but I'm gonna be getting tired of eating apples every day. You know what I'm saying? I don't be wanting to eat the same thing like there's always an excuse for why they can't do something. And so in that sense, even in developing an independent community, you know, again, it starts up here. Like you got to have an independent brain, an independent way of thinking. You know, we got to decalcify some of these cortexes. And that to me is where it starts. You know, go out onto a farm and see how they do that. If farming ain't your thing, that's cool. Study electricity and figure out how you can make a electrical system from natural resources like wind or water. And if that's not your thing, that's cool. Figure out how you can turn dirt or sand into PC component. Like figure out how you can turn something natural around you into something that's actually a usable product in a way that you like to do. There are plenty of different skill sets for nation building, but you know it's hard to do any of that when you got people thinking, well, how am I getting to my girlfriend's house? She lived across town from me.
Mm-hmm.
Independence comes with responsibility, huh?
Go figure.
It's the why should I for me. You know, the why should I? And you know, I felt it's a shame because on social media, I'm watching a lot of people who I know posting pictures and memorials to their children that they've lost out in these streets. And for the longest, when you talk to those same people 10, 15 years ago and talked about the importance of nation building and the importance of creating a place where our children can live free and not be placed in this particular box or placed where they would that life on the streets would become a priority, not just an option, but priority. A lot of them in the past would say, that's not my problem. All I do is worry about what's going on in my house. And I often said, well, if you have a nation, the village, we always talk about the village. The village is there to buffer. The village is there when you can't be. The village is there to keep your children on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, the village ain't default.
Right. So a lot of times those conversations will hit a dead end because they didn't want to deal with it. And the large majority reason why is because they didn't want that to interfere with their extracurricular activities. They didn't want that to interfere with the fact I'm going to work 2 jobs. So I barely see my children. I barely raise my children so that they can have a life that I never had. And now these children have all the free time in the world to do mischievous things because there's nobody there to tell them, no, you can't do this.
Well, that's just another example of how responsibility comes with independence, because we're looking at this word specifically, independence versus freedom or liberation. Right? Because you can be free but not necessarily have independence. You can be liberated from one situation and still go to the next that is an oppressive situation. We're talking about independence where we're totally autonomous and on our own to self-actualize. We have no oppressors, or we may live with oppressors around us, but everything that we own, everything we have, we control. And we're in 100% control of the quality of our lives. We're 100% in control of defending ourselves. We're 100% control of our education. We're 100% control of the propaganda that goes out. Every area of human activity, we're in total control of, and we're making like how the Chinese do. And when the Chinese don't like something, they shut it down. No. This stupid American stuff. No, we ain't doing it. No, they're in full control of the things that they have going on. They're independent people. They're an independent nation in that sense. So we have to think about that. Think about what really comes with independence. And so the next question would be, is Black independence, is it realistically attainable? I will start with you, PC. Is Black independence, is that something that realistically can be attained?
It's possible. It's possible. Not probable, but it's possible. And what I mean by not probable for the masses, but it's possible for critical mass of Black people. And the reason why I say that is because Black people as a whole function like a defeated people. Now, a defeated people operate in cowardice in a lot of places, because when you get defeated, that means you stop fighting. And I think a lot of us have thrown in the towel. And it goes back to some of the other conversations we've had where the Titanic has already hit the iceberg, is going down, but we're telling the band, turn the music up. You know what I'm saying? We're still going to dance. We see the ship sinking. We're not even looking for the lifeboats at this point. We didn't even take into consideration that it might sink, so let's find the lifeboats just in case. So we have a whole community of people, and I'm not saying everybody, but too many people who have thrown in the towel. They like the rhetoric. It feels good, like going to church. The pastor's sermon feels good, spiritually uplifting. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the practical application of building this shit and the practical application of the practicalities of dealing with the real dangers that come with dealing with this, because we all can tell stories about the death threats and cops coming out of nowhere and, mysterious things clicking on our phone lines. And, I tell the story all the time. When I was doing some real boots on the ground work, my car door was open every day for a calendar year until I had a conversation with y'all, a private conversation with y'all about it. And then from that day forward, my car door was shut. So, we have a lot. We have to actually recognize everybody ain't for this fight. And some people are just comfortable with their place in it. Now, like I said, possible, yeah, but it all depends on the will of the people who are ready to build it, and goes back to what you said earlier with our good brother Sam Carter said, and that man's a legend, by the way. I've never met Sam, but every time I see Sam, he's doing some great work, man. So shout out to Sam. Your success built on the amount of sacrifice. We're not willing to sacrifice. So how can you know if you'll ever be great if you're not ever willing to take a chance at being great? Because you ever take a chance at failing to be great, because you have to push yourself beyond places you've never gone before. And a lot of us just don't have that in us.
Pat, same question. Is black independence realistic?
Yes and no. If we expect to achieve Black independence and maintain the same creature comforts and quality of life we have right now, no, that's not possible. Not in the short term, anyways. I think if we started on something and then, worked on it, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years, we could eventually get back here. But is it possible in general? Yes. But I think we would have to give up a lot. Everybody would have to give up creature comforts. A lot of us would have to give up the cars we drive because we don't produce them or the components to produce them in our communities. We would have to give up a lot of things like that require gasoline, because not many of us are producing that. So, if it's got a motor that runs on gas, again, if we're talking about complete autonomy,
like realistic autonomy. Yes.
Everything comes from out of the community. A lot of us will have to give up family members. They out of range.
Yes.
A lot of us will have to give up relationships. They out of range. It's not even you don't love the person no more. It's just connecting to them is out of your range now. So now the community becomes smaller and tighter. People are more dependent on each other. You know what I'm saying? And now, nowadays people got the luxury of saying it ain't no pretty people in my city. When your city is your whole world, all them 4s and 5s turn into 7s and 8s. So, so you know, even and I think about even on that level, like even on the relationship type pairing up level, where nowadays we're spoiled by the internet and a bunch of other technologies that aren't really, you know, put together by our community. You know, the dating apps and stuff.
Yeah, we had the luxury to be superficial.
Right. All of that goes away. And that alone, I think, is too much for the vast majority of us. Like just to like you think about it, right? Like, and I'm married, so I can harp on this because I ain't got no dog in this fight. You think about it, right? There are grown women right now that have never known dating outside of dating apps. Never known it. These are people that say, if you approach me, I'm gonna give you my Instagram, not my phone number. And if I give you my phone number, text me, don't call. If you call me, that's creepy. You cut off. Could you imagine a world where these people actually had to talk to people? Like right away? Like, hey, how you doing? Oh my God.
Well, but I mean, but that's why we're having this conversation, though, bro. Like, I mean, that's why we're gonna spend some time on this project.
No, I mean, I so I'm just like, and I know I got off on a tangent, but I'm just saying,
but
like,
it's you went to a good place, but it just, you know, go ahead though.
but I'm just saying, like, so like with me, like, you just think about the way people process information, the way their minds work nowadays. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's we would have to give up so much that we would become a totally new people. We wouldn't even recognize ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We have to get rid of the niggas.
Well, you know, it's funny because I was having a conversation with a young brother of mine and earlier today, and we were talking about when you create black organizations, how important it is to keep them black and not to allow any white folk in, because the highest in terms of ranks of us will still look to the lowest in terms of ranks to them for leadership. You know, I remember a phone call we when I had the Blog Talk radio show and I was doing it on the porch, and there was a white woman that kept calling into the show, and she kept talking about how she would love to join our ranks, and I just felt no. You know what I'm saying? And she was like really astounded. It's almost like she felt entitled to be that we should be you know, honored to have her presence there. And I'm like, no. And she, you know, why? I said, well, for two reasons. One, you know, black people seem to go out of their way to excuse your whiteness and to make you feel comfortable about all the atrocities that white folk have done to black people. Black people go out of their way, so they lay down the red carpet for you. And I've seen this in damn near every dynamic pro-black, black power, black independence movements. Every time I've been in there, a white person come into the room and change the whole energy, change the whole atmosphere by just being there.
Well, we talked about that black skin, white mask.
Yeah. And it goes back to what Frantz Fanon was talking about, right?
Yep.
So
double consciousness.
The second part is the only reason they want to be a part of us, our movements, is because they've been alienated in their own community, and this is their way at getting back at the people who turned their backs on them, like the hunchback in 300. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go over here and join these Egyptians, and because Leonidas said I can't join his.
He hurt my feelings because he wouldn't let me join the army, even though I was gonna be a problem. Liability. I wasn't going. Yeah, a big liability. I'm mad now. But that's a lot of us. But that's why this conversation, I think, is needed, because we talk about liberation a lot, and we talk about black people progressing, us doing on our stuff on our own. But have we really sat down and really thought about it, or even had an in-depth conversation with others about what it really realistically takes for us to be independent, like what it really takes, not just the stuff that make us feel good about being independent, because
No.
like we're having a, like Pat, you went off on the tangent about us not even, we don't even like each other on basic levels. Like the idea is, for, and I don't like this in our community, is if you are not, like, especially like something like religion, if you're not on the same religious path as me, then I look down on you. You can't be an asset. You can't be valuable. Malcolm already told us to leave our religions and stuff at the door. So, and another thing, like you're talking about the white people who want to join our organizations, I take another angle. I think they all insurgents. I think they all still work for the man. And hell, if they can come and be a part of our organizations and ramshack and mess our organizations up and give us bad advice and help mess us up, I don't trust none of them. I read things fall apart. I don't trust none of them.
No.
But look, because for me, beyond the materialistic things we would need to survive, being able to procure food, water, shelter, and that's basically it. Clean air,
protection,
can't procure that. Right? Like, my biggest thing is not that we couldn't produce those things for ourselves, because, like I said, given time, we could. Will we survive that first generation though? And I'm talking about interpersonal,
right?
Like people to people, like we're right now in the midst of a great reckoning, if you will. I know Brother PC said the gender war is over, and I tend to agree with him. But both sides is still throwing jabs. The arena is empty. We still in the ring talking shit. So like, how would that even work? Like, I'm talking about like man to woman, woman to man. How would we even survive the first generation of that, where men are going to have to get off their block and be something that they say they want to be, but we see y'all. Not a lot of y'all want to be what y'all talking about. And women are in that same boat. They want something, and we see y'all too. Not a lot of y'all are willing to do the things that make what you want attainable to you.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
how would that even work out?
And I just use this word for this phrase, but freedom ain't free. So, and it's a lot of the stuff that you talked about in the chasm. Make sure y'all get your copy of the chasm, So, but a lot of stuff you talked about in the chasm, as far as the ills and the things that have happened to us from the white society, but also looking at the way it affected us and the way we reacted, or the way we respond to what has happened to us. And we have to realize that, like you said, we're going to have to be able to feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, shelter ourselves, protect all of that, and expand that and grow that and make that better, improve on that as time go. Will we lose some people in the beginning? Hell yeah, probably in the first 3 waves, probably lose a lot of people. I mean, because it's a purging of
the things that don't fit.
Right. And things that don't fit within an oppressed way of life, where we've only known to be workers, a working class for a certain group of people. I think we have to understand that too. We have only known being workers for white people. We're totally dependent. So yes, you're going to have to give up everything that you depend on from them.
Not a correction in that you're wrong. A correction in that if we started building this right now, and my mom would really get on to me for saying this, but actually nowadays she might agree. This new group of us, we not workers.
Right, but whose fault is that?
I'm just saying. Well, I mean, you said we've only ever known working. That might work for those people that are 40 plus. The people my generation and younger.
But let's just be real. But if they want to make something out of themselves and they want to be somebody, Where they gonna get the money from? Where they gonna get the where they gonna get the opportunities from? Where they gonna get the
Sugar
resources
mama,
from?
sugar
They're gonna be
daddy.
doing TikToks.
Right.
And who
They
on
gonna be
TikTok?
they gonna
Who
be
paid them the money from the who paid the money from the YouTube? Who paid the money from the TikTok?
Hold
Who
on,
paid the
Joe.
money?
They're gonna be TikTok making.
I mean, but you're still depending on something that's not ran by your folk
You
for
depend on the
your
enemies.
sustenance.
That's all
exactly.
it is. This is all war. And I'm sorry, y'all. Right now, I've been trying to mute because apparently the ops is outside circling over my house.
We don't hear nothing.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So this is war. And people are just scared to say it. War. Everything is warfare. Everything. And so when you're not dependent on yourself, you allow other people to control your water. That means they could turn the faucet off at any time they want. And that's where Black people are. And we will kiss enough ass. We will get on our knees and slob enough knobs. And I mean that literally and figuratively to make sure that they keep the water running. But we won't stand up. I mean, even look at our response to the political process here in this country. We don't even have a Black party where Black people can come together politically and say, listen, these are our lobbies, these are our policies, these are the things that's going to work for our community. It's always with somebody else's hand in our pocket. You know what I'm saying? If we're going to have empowerment zones, guess what? We're going to create jobs in this part of the city and this, that, the other that's been affected by blight and all these other things. And here you go, all these white franchise corporations pulling in. Yeah, they're giving us minimum wage jobs, but at the same time, like you said before, there's no ownership there. And you go to other neighborhoods, like in Philadelphia, you got places where the Russians have their own stores, supplies, and lots. The Koreans have their own stores and lines comply. The Filipinos have their own stores, lines comply. Don't even get me started on the community we can't name who have their own lots and things of that nature. That's how they function. And that's how nations function. You know, we could talk about it being Black, African, the African way. Listen, the bottom line is you do what you have to do for your nation to protect and defend your nation. And like Pat said, nowadays, these kids quit. This generation quits. This is why relationships fail, because we quit when shit get hard.
Yep.
And you know what I'm saying? And listen, and I don't like even giving disclaimers. I'm not the biggest fan of Michelle Obama, but she said something really powerful in one of her interviews that got her a lot of backlash when she said that when you're dealing with marriages, it's not 50-50 all the time. And there's sometimes when it's 80-20, but you have to see it through in order for it to balance to kick in. And you have to see it. We ain't willing to deal with that 20% in no particular time. And for real, we ain't really willing to deal with 50-50 the majority of the time.
Yeah, nah.
If it ain't like 60-40 in our favor, we looking for the door. And when it comes to being loyal to Black people, most Black people ain't even loyal to themselves because we hate who we are. Well, and that gets to the bottom of it, because when you really think about, and I spoke about cowardice, and a lot of people in the comments are probably going to say, who are you calling a coward? Motherfucker, I'm calling you a coward if you have a child and you haven't stood up to defend or create a situation that's going to create a better condition, not just for your child, but the generation that your child is a part of. I'm talking to you. Because at the end of the day, if you don't make life easier for your culture going forward, then yeah, you are a coward.
You know what's funny? Hold on, PC.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Because what you just said, two things. One, is interesting. The friends that I have that are still in government work are right now upset because the government is banning TikTok on government devices because it's a China-owned corporation. We can dig into that if we want, but that's pretty, you know. And then two, what you just said, people are always looking for what makes their life easier. And that's going to be the biggest hurdle to building an independent community. You hear people saying it with regards to relationships of all kinds, friendships, sibling relationships, cousinships, all kinds. People are asking, how are you making my life easier? It's whole sages and social media coming up right now. That's the central theme of their message. Don't fuck with people that don't make your life easier.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Jim.
I mean, so that's why the question is Black independence realistic? So because both you brought up a generation that's a part of our generation, the younger generation, that are lazy, that don't want to work for anything. And I asked the question earlier, well, who taught them that? Who conditioned them to be that? I would not if it's part of our generation, so that's our parents' generations and the ones before us. We are not prepared. The majority of us are not prepared in any type of way for liberation. I mean,
it started with our grandparents. I'll say that.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say this rapper's name on here because we in public, but I remember watching the show, and this particular rapper was getting on the people because they were not ready for emergency. They were not ready for war. They were not ready for survival. But this same particular rapper in the TV show that he was on, he couldn't walk a block without getting tired. And it didn't make no sense to me for you to be yelling at people. Y'all not ready for revolution. Y'all not ready for war. Y'all can't do nothing to survive. Y'all can't do this. Y'all can't do this. Y'all can't do this. But you can't walk a block without being tired.
Well, Joe, since you brought it up, I didn't know if we was gonna go there, but that's the other issue, conditioning.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? How many of us is gonna tire out before we get to that aquifer? You know what I'm saying? That aqueduct, that underwater water reserve or that underground water reserve to create the well, to create the irrigation systems. How many of us are gonna get tired midway through building the shelter, knowing that a storm is coming? How like these are questions we.
Now, one of the things though is these are things that Black people have done in the past. Black people have developed whole cities.
Not these Black people though, not us.
I understand that. I understand that. That's what I was getting to. You see, you jumping the gun, Pat. See.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. My bad.
But that's what I'm gonna get to though. Like, we've lost the art of living. We've lost the art of surviving. We lost the art of thriving. We don't know how to plant food. Like you say, we don't know how to get water, irrigate water. We don't know how to hunt. A lot of us don't know how to hunt. We don't know how to do a lot of things, basic stuff. Like we literally have generations of people who think it's an insult for them to know how to cook. Because their parents have made them believe that cooking is beneath you, but you eat every day. But cooking, the food that you eat, is like we're to a point to where we believe we're too good to go to specific restaurants.
Yeah, well,
we're too good for stuff. We're too good for survival. Yeah. We're too good to give up what we need to get to where we need to go, and that's an issue. That's the part of. But real quick, I just thought about it too. But that's a part of the conditioning, and that goes into the nigga mentality of the self-destructiveness of the nigga mentality that we really have to be able to look at. Even when it. For the person who stays that mentality, even when it looked like it could turn a new leaf, it's gonna take steps back because they're gonna always find a way to mess it up because that's a whole part of the condition.
Hey man, you sum that shit up by saying this: we're too good to wear certain types of dirt. Like it's all dirt, but we too good to wear certain kinds.
Yeah, that's the we are in trouble, and it's sickening to know that you're part of a community that we've always been on the brink of being wiped out through whatever reason, or placed in perpetual poverty for whatever reason, and to actually see the whole world realigning itself right now. All these other nations realigning itself as it's jockeying for positions of power for the next 100 years, the next century, and so forth. Not even just the next century, the 2035 plan, which is just rampant on everywhere. But in 2050 plan, and when you see all these different plans and you realize we are not planning. And like I said before, it goes back to the fact that as a defeated people, we're just hoping that somebody else is going to make a way for us. And that was one of the reasons why, I did the Independence Day Project. Having conversations with children, going into high schools and telling them what's really going on and educating them on the system of white supremacy and its effects on them in the community. And the children saying, okay, well, what do we do? And not having an answer for them. That was the whole push behind the journey of, well, what does an independent Black community free of white supremacy look like to you? Because I went to elders. I went to people who said that we were in the struggle. And I said, well, what does that mean? Well, as soon as they do something, we're going to react and respond. And I said, so basically we're a bunch of reactionaries. And so, I said, so what does an independent Black community look like to you? And they couldn't answer the question because they never thought about the possibility of Black people being liberated and free and autonomous. These are people who actually did some real work. These are former Black Panthers from the 60s and the 70s. These are former Black nationalists who, spent time in prison and were, prisoners of war and things of that nature. And they didn't have the answers. You know what I'm saying? Part of organizations that have been around for 100 years, and they didn't have the answers. And so you brothers, part of the Brain Trust, as well as being featured in the film, we came up with concepts that reverse engineered what that looked like and how we can build it. But the biggest problem I had with the film is the fact that when people saw it and knew that they would have to practically apply the solutions themselves, and we weren't just banging on white supremacy, but we were talking about, in fact, if anybody ever watches the documentary, we barely even talked about white supremacy past the point of just acknowledging that it was a barrier.
You don't need, you don't, look, listen. And that's why I'm glad we're talking about this. Listen, folks, if you didn't know, you're finna learn now. I'm finna learn, you're right. We don't need like you just said, we don't need to concentrate on white supremacy outside of understanding it's still there and what it do and why it's still there. We should only be concentrating on getting our stuff together, fixing our stuff, being the best that we can be, improving and empowering everything that got to do with us. When we keep concentrating on other folk, we're not spending time doing what we need to do for ourselves. That's one of our biggest problems. We always worried about what white people doing, what white people think, and how white people gonna feel about what we doing. Forget that. You're never gonna get to where you need to go acting like that.
It's not one of our biggest problems. It's one of our biggest perks. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the biggest benefits for them. Yeah. I mean, even during this conversation, like this is probably the most we've spent talking about white supremacy. Because at the end of the day, like, it's like complaining about it stinking in an elevator. Yeah, well, okay, it stink. Now what?
My thing, like we should understand what it is, how it affects us. We should understand the who, what, where, when, and why when it comes to it. But concentrating on white supremacy and harping on it, it's not gonna help us.
But that's not something for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I know
people need to look. The vast majority of us aren't going to understand white supremacy because we don't want to. That's the truth of it. And that's not nothing to get mad at. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it is. Everything is a numbers game. There are going to be people in every culture, in every community that don't really care about the history of why that community is the way it is and functions the way it functions. They just care that it works. And those are the people that are going to be the average everyday people. They go about their day reinforcing the norms, the mores for it. They reinforce things, doing it every day without even thinking about it. Right? You don't get mad at those people because those are the people that keep things in motion. But if you want to be a thinker, you think about, okay, Black progress versus white progress. Again, we go back to that. You know what I'm saying? Are we focusing on what white people need to do, a community that we're not a part of, that we have no influence to say so in? Or are we focused on what Black people need to do? And from that, we come to this conversation where we're talking about, okay, well, is it possible? Is it realistic? What do we need to get there? All of that stuff is intertwined. But one of the things we got to stop doing, is getting mad at the average black person for not caring. If you understand, great. Put your understanding into action.
Right.
Well, the American I'm sorry, Joe. The American Revolution was fought with 3% of the colonial population being active. But the rest of the country, once the war was over, got on code, got in line for the most part. You got your Benedict Arnolds, but make good eggs. But you had, for the most part, you had the country fall in line. It's never going to be a large majority. It was never a large majority at any point in time in our history. Very small, probably less than 1% of the black population at any given time was involved in any type of even civil rights or liberation struggle in this country. The most participation you might have had was during the Civil War, when black people were literally fighting for their lives. But outside of that, it's been you could probably say less than 1%. People take real good pictures, get real good angles, and a crowd of 30 can look like a crowd of 300 if you're a real good photographer.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is, it's going to take those of us who are willing to do it, who are willing to be quiet about it, who are willing to be discreet, like you did, Pat, when you had your children, you and your sons go out and do the neighborhood cleanup. And it's going to take those people who are willing to quietly make that sacrifice and not necessarily look for the accolades that come with the film and the cinema and the rolling credits and things of that nature. We don't hear music playing when we're doing our work in the community. What it's also going to take is black people being unapologetic about not giving a flying fuck what white people think or say. Because I can think back to just 2-3 years ago when the world stood still and white folk coming out and saying, I don't mind black people protesting just as long as you're quiet and peaceful, and black people complying with that. And now I saw the riots and things of that nature, but shit, those are pretty much led by white militias and anarchist groups. I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, black people still try to fight for a space in the hearts of white people. And that's where we fall short. We fall in line with trying to say where we had ancestors back. And this is going to piss a lot of y'all off too. Our ancestors lost. I don't give a fuck what you think about their movements in the past. We must learn from their mistakes. As much as we glorify their greatness, we must learn from their mistakes. And you are qualified because they did that work and the mission did not get accomplished. We have to ask ourselves, how do we accomplish the mission and not live in nostalgia?
Well, yeah, our ancestors lost and we still losing today. I mean, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in now if our ancestors didn't lose, and we're still losing today. But at least we got to give all the credit to our ancestors, because at least they had the nuts to fight people.
Oh yeah.
The nuts to fight. So yes, like
I didn't mean that in a disrespectful manner.
No. I know, and I'm just building off of what you're saying, because yes, they lost, but they had the nuts to fight. But also, what you said, the powerful thing, what you said is, we have to learn from their victories and their losses. Take what we can from their victories and take what we can from their losses and learn from that. But the reality is, we wouldn't be in the position that we are in today if we had more victories. Let's just be honest about it. But we are generations away from those people.
Oh yeah.
So is black liberation realistic? What is black liberation? Those are two main questions that's on the table. And I want y'all to, in the comments, answering, giving us your thoughts and opinions in the comments. Just keep it respectful. Keep it respectful. If you disagree with somebody, disagree respectfully. Won't need all that crazy stuff in my comment section, because we'll kick you out of my comment section. So I'm letting you know that now. So come in with some respect.
Well, I got some crazy disrespectful stuff to say.
They kick you out too.
I
ain't
don't.
special.
I don't give our ancestors all the credit in the world. I give them credit for fighting.
Okay.
That's it. You said we give them all the credit in the world. I don't. I give them credit for fighting.
Me and you different. Okay.
No, I don't. I don't. I don't.
So,
No, my biggest beef. Here's real quick. Here's my biggest beef, right? And it's not necessarily with the ancestors whose lives got cut short abruptly and died. That's different. But with those that lived nice, full lives afterwards and didn't leave any memoirs, any statements of analysis, any white papers, blue papers, red papers, or orange papers about what they did, why it failed, what they would do different, anything for us to learn from. Those people that stood on what they did 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago and then died holding up the mantle of a hero, I got a beef with them.
As you
and
should.
I don't think any of us should follow in that footstep. That's not the playbook we should follow. So I give them credit for fighting as well. But I got questions about their legacy and why it's held up the way it is. You know, especially when it's compared to the legacies of people whose lives were cut short before they had the ability to do that, like a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Fred Hampton, or, you know, we can go down the list of all the people whose lives were cut short. So I got some issues with some of our honorable ancestors, and those of you that are still alive and haven't done that, I'm looking at you sideways too. And I know people are gonna be like, well, who the hell are you? I'm me. I can do that. I'm not saying I'm right or I'm wrong. I'm not saying you got to follow me. I'm just saying the legacy that we hold our greats up on has to be more than some shit they did 60 years ago. If I don't give Bernie Sanders credit for it, I'm not gonna give your ass credit for it. Do something more. Give me something out of what you did and the years that you had to analyze what you did that I can take forward into the next generation, because you've had time to do it.
Yeah, we have too many Jackie Robinsons in the you know, too many Jackie Robinsons. You know, they have JRS, you know, Jackie
we'll
Robinson.
Explain that to y'all. We'll explain that to y'all later. Yeah. But nah, that's real though. But you know, all in all, if we're gonna continue to complain about our situation, at least have the guts to do something about it. But there's responsibility that comes with doing something about it. And the question is not for the masses, but for those of us who say we want it, for those of us who claim to be conscious of weight, pro-black, pan-Africanism, black nationalist, FBA, whatever you call yourself, under the umbrella of black people getting our stuff together. If you are in this group of people and we have never taken a realistic, honest look at what it would take for us to be totally independent, totally autonomous, to be able to build for ourselves, to survive on our own, that everything is on us. If we never taken that critical look, and we fooling ourselves, because we have to take a critical look at what it would take to survive, but we have to take a critical look at what it would take for us to get there, for those of us who want it, because we still got to shed some of the negritude that's on us.
I think one of the biggest things that we need to get past is the emotional heightenedness of gatherings, people who that we typically feel at the beginning, because that typically the emotions wear off when the work starts. And if we could look at it through a post-orgasmic experience, you know what I'm saying, with the thought process, I think it will help for people to identify whether they're really for this or whether they were just for that moment. And that's pretty much where I'm gonna leave it today. I'm landing my plane.
Hey, there's always something you got to give up to get anything you want. Success, like my man Sam Carter, gonna end on this. My man Sam Carter say success is measured by sacrifice. Do you really want it? Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones. This is Breakdown Friday. Once again, we appreciate all the views, all the support. I'm still demonetized. Yeah, of course, you know they trying to shrink the views, but because of you all who loving the content that we putting out, I love all your supporters. We still getting views over here. Of course, it's not the views that we could be getting, but we still getting views because y'all are still supporting On the Shows of Giants, and I appreciate everybody who is just still rocking with me. So that's how we do. My brothers, once again, I love y'all and I appreciate what y'all got going on in y'all individual selves, and I appreciate the support that you're giving me for On the Shows of Giants, and we're gonna keep moving this thing forward. So this is part 1. So we'll come back part 2 next week, giving you more of the Independence Day Project. And real quick, PC, where can people get a copy of the Independence Day Project?
Well, they can go to any of the social media sites that I'm on, Facebook, Instagram, shoot me an inbox. They can go to blackindependence.org. It's blackindependence.org, and they can go to ProfessorCarlToneJones.com. Go to ProfessorCarlToneJones.com, and the documentary, we got physical form, and we also have a digital copy that's available for most people. Nowadays don't have DVD players. They're like relics. So,
and the website scrolling across the bottom of the screen, www.ontheshoulders1.com. You can also get a digital copy there as well. It's still up there on my site. You can still get a digital copy of the Independence Day Project on my website. So all of that, blackindependence.com, and your email will be blackindependence.org. Blackindependence.org plus your best contact will be, it's in the description, plus my website and everything else. So go support the brother Independence Day Project. You will not be disappointed. So love you all. Make sure y'all catch the next video. We out.